Make sure you check out our online store where we work with our graphic designer to create stunning garment and product designs that feature a wide variety of aircraft types such as British fighters, World War II aircraft, American bombers, Russian fighters and much more. You can pick your favourite designs and personalise any items within our Redbubble store that range from clothing right the way through to stationery. All of our designs feature our logo so you can show your support for the channel while getting a quality product. You can head to our website aircrewinterview.tv and click store, or go to redbubble.com/people/AC interview. Thank you and enjoy. Yeah, Roger, talk us through your first flight in the Hunter. What was that like?
Right. Well, great excitement and quite nervous. And I was taken out to the airplane by one of the senior flying officers. He must have been almost 23 years old. You know, he was a very experienced man. Put me in the cockpit and we switched it all on. We fired up the engine, which had a cartridge start. And then he switched on the power controls, tapped me on the head and said, "Don't break it," and off I went. And the first impression you got when you opened the throttle and moved forward was the undercarriage. Very long, stalky legs on the undercarriage, and it was very bumpy because the actual tyres had something like 180 pounds per square inch pressure in.
Wow.
So it really, every bump you felt it. Anyway, you taxied out to the end of the runway, which wasn't very long at Chivner, 2,000 yards, and line up and they tell you it's time to go, and you open the throttle, and when you open the throttle, my God, this thing set off.
So it was a big difference from the Vampire.
If you had the brakes on, you went to full power, it would move. The brakes couldn't hold it.
Wow.
It was quite powerful. And so you'd release the brakes and this thing would set off down there, and you thought, well, you were probably about 100 yards behind the aeroplane, at least you felt that way. And the other thing was that when you lifted it off the ground at about 150 knots was the sort of speed you get off the ground, there's power controls for the ailerons, and if you look at the ailerons, they're big, great big slabs, and they're powered by hydraulic hydro boosters they're called. And when you first moved the stick, it was very sensitive, and in fact it was quite amusing because all the other students would come out of the crew room and watch people do their first solo takeoff, because as soon as they got off the ground they would go off into the distance because they were over controlling on the things, and of course the speed just came whizzing up, and if you weren't quick with the undercarriage getting it up, you were exceeding the undercarriage speed, and the undercarriage speed above which you shall not go was 250 knots. So you reached 250 knots almost off the end of the runway, and then you put that up, and then the climb speed was 420 knots. Well, that was something like 100 knots faster than you'd ever been in your life before.
That's a huge difference.
And you'd be at about 1,000 feet or so as you speed winding up very quickly. And when you got to 420 knots, you bring the stick back to hold that speed, and the aircraft would be going up at that angle really fast. And as I say, you get to 40,000 feet in about 5.5, 6 minutes, something like that.
That's quick.
Very quick. And then when you leveled off, you'd be doing about 0.9 of the speed of sound. And you throttle back, and then you don't use much fuel up there by comparison. So we could fly around and do all sorts of various manoeuvres, and it was and then come home quickly because we had bingo lights which came on, which told you were low on fuel. And then you'd have to come straight back down and land. And of course, when you landed it, you were coming down the final approach at 150 knots to slowing it down a bit to about 140 for the landing. But that was something like 40 knots faster than you'd ever landed before.
Big difference.
Bit different.
Yeah.
And when you put it on the ground, and it went down with a bit of a bang because of these stiff undercarriages and the high pressure tyres, and your nose came down and you put the brakes on, you think, God, am I going to stop in time? And you did. And
Did
so
you have a chute in the back?
No chute.
No chute.
Not
All
on the
right.
Mark 1.
Right.
The later Marks, the Mark 9 and the two-seaters, which came in much later, they had chutes.